Alright, so today class we are going to learn something called writing our numbers in expanded notation. So as you see here on our title page, our goal is to be able to decompose numbers using this new form which we are calling expanded notation. As you work through your assignment, you'll see that on slide number 1, you cannot do anything on your slide. This is your title page. It is not anything that you are meant to turn in. Now I'm going to show you what expanded notation is as I work through the next few slides. So on slide number 2, you'll see here that we have an abacus. And as we learned on abacus on Monday, an abacus is used to represent numbers once we start moving past the thousands place value. After the thousands place value, our numbers become so large that even if we created a base 10 block to represent the 10,000s place, the block would be too big for us to really manipulate in our hands. So instead, we move to what we call an abacus to represent our place values. And each line on the abacus represents a place value where we place beads to represent our digits. So in the first spot, we have our ones place, which is spelled out for us. But the T stands for our tens place, the H stands for our hundreds place, the TH stands for our thousands place, and then we have our TTH, which stands for our 10,000s place. And it is because of this place value that we now move to an abacus to model our numbers instead of using base 10 blocks. And the beads on the abacus represent the digit that is in that place value. So if you see up here to the right, we have the number 10,000. And that is in standard form representing the 10,000s place value. Next to it, I'm going to fill out in the digit that is in that 10,000s place value. So I have to count the beads on my abacus. I have 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to put 3 because I have 3 beads on my 10,000s place value. Now to represent the value of that number, to put this together, 3 times 10,000, as we've been learning in our number talk, means that I have the same number repeating. So if I take this number 10,000 and I add it together 3 times, I have 10,000 plus 10,000 plus 10,000. And when I put that together, I end up with the number 30,000. And this is what we call our value. Now, when I move to the next number, I'm looking at my thousands place value. On my thousands place value, I have no beads. And so if you remember all the way back at the beginning of the school year, we read about the number 0. And we learned that the number 0 means that we have nothing. So when we see nothing, we can represent it with the number 0. So I'm going to put a 0 to represent my thousands place value. And if I have no zeros, then my value for that place value would simply be 0. And so now we move on to our next place value, which is the hundreds. In the hundreds place, I have 1, 2. So the digit that's represented in the hundreds place is the number 2. If we have 2 hundreds in our hundreds place, we have 100 plus 100, so our value would be 200. And so we move to our next place value, our tens. In the tens place, we have 1 bead representing the digit 1. For 1 times 10, our value equals 10. And last but not least, we have the ones place. Our beads show that we have 1, 2 beads in the ones place. And so the digit in the ones place is 2. So 2 times 1, our value then would be 2. So what we're doing with expanded notation is we're breaking our digits up and showing our digits times the place value that we have. So follow me to the next slide and we'll see more on how that looks. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to write some random numbers in my expander. It doesn't have to be any particular number, so I'm filling the number 3, 7, 8, 1, and 0. So now what I'm going to do As you see here, I've broken up my place values. In expanded notation, we separate each place value with what we call a parentheses. So in my first group of parentheses, I'm representing the number that is in my 10,000s place. In my 10,000s place, I'm starting at the front. I see that I have a 3. That was what I chose. So the digit in the 10,000s place is the number 3. So that's what I'm going to fill in for that spot. When I move on to my next parentheses, I'm looking for the digit in the thousands place. The digit in the thousands place is my number 7, so I'm going to fill in the number 7. In my hundreds place, my digit is the number 8, and so I put the number 8. In my tens place, I have a 1, so I'm going to place the digit 1. And in my ones place, I have a 0, so I will place the digit 0. Now, a special note, when we have zeros and we're using expanded notation or expanded form, we don't actually have to represent those zeros. You can completely skip that place value if you want. For the purposes of practice, we're going to put our zeros, but later on, you might notice that the 0 is missing. And that is because it's not required when we're actually writing out in expanded notation. So here we see that in expanded notation, to represent the number 37,810, it becomes 3 times 10,000, 7 times 1,000, 8 times 100, 1 times 10, and 0 times 1. And when I group all those different numbers, I want you to notice that in between, I use the plus sign. The plus sign is very important in expanded form and in expanded notation. So let's do this again. Let's make another number. So we're going to use the number 5, the number 7, the number 9, the number 2, and the number 1. And so just like before, I'm going to copy each digit from their place value to match with the place value that is listed below. So for the 10,000s, I have a 5. For the 1,000, I have a 7. For the 100, I have a 9. And for the 10, I have a 2. And for the 1, I have a 1. And so the number 57,921 becomes 5 times 10,000, 7 times 1,000, 9 times 100, 2 times 10, and 1 times 1. And each of those is separated with a plus sign. And so last, we are going to demonstrate how to separate those without what is already filled in for us. So I have the number 22,418. So I'm going to separate that. The difficult thing about expanded notation is this time we have to start at the front. Whereas before, we've always been starting with the ones place. So I have to recognize the place value in the front. In this case, it is the 10,000s. So I want to start off with that parentheses. The number 2 is in that place. I can use the X on my keyboard to represent my times. And then I'm going to write the place value in standard form. My digit 2 is in the 10,000s place, so I'm writing 10,000. I finish with that closed parentheses. Use a plus sign. Start a new parentheses. My next number is a 2 again. I use that X as my times. The place value after it is the thousands place, so I represent it with the number 1,000. Close parentheses, plus, parentheses, next number, 4, times 100 for my place value, plus, parentheses, 1 for the 1 here, times 10 for my place value, close parentheses, plus, parentheses, 8 times 1 for the place value 1, close parentheses. When you finish with the ones place, you are finished. Watch as I finish the last 3 numbers. I'm starting with the 1 in the 10,000s place. 1 times 10,000, parentheses, plus, parentheses. 6 times 1,000, parentheses, plus, parentheses. 7 times 100, parentheses, plus, parentheses. 8 times 10, parentheses, plus, parentheses. 9 times 1, parentheses. Finish. 2 more. Always start with those parentheses. 7 times 10,000, parentheses, plus, parentheses. 9 times 1,000, parentheses, plus, parentheses. Make sure it's the right way. 5 times 100, parentheses, plus, parentheses. 3 times 10, parentheses, plus, parentheses. And 3 times 1, close parentheses. And last but not least, 4 times 10,000. Now, as I told you earlier, you would see later that we can skip those zeros. And the purposes of the beginning, we use the digit 0. But we actually skip because we can still show that there's nothing there by not actually putting it there. So I'm going to skip my thousands place this time and move on to my hundreds place. So I have 2 times 100, close parentheses, plus 1 times 10. Oh, here's the thing. I forgot to start my parentheses. Make sure you put parentheses. And in my ones place, I have that 0, so I'm going to skip. So this one is shorter because I skipped the zeros, which you are allowed to do. So your job is to finish the last 2 slides that you see here. So these slides will be erased when you start. So this will be slide number 2 for you. So your job, you're going to see that the number is written in expanded notation. So this says build the number. Use the numbers to build the number that matches the expanded form. So you have to take your numbers over here and move them to match each digit. So I had a 3 and then a 4, and you're going to finish building your number on your next slide. And on your final slide, you have the number in expanded notation, and you have to find the standard form down here. You have to match that standard form to the right box where it is written in expanded notation. When you have finished those 2 slides, you're good to go.